I was 16 years old, and drug dealing is just something that came so natural to me.
Here's my sister, 5'3", running shit.
I had credit with the Colombians, the Mexicans, I had credit with the Peruvians. They would give me kilos, just hand them over to me.
I would walk into the hotel room and there would be 10 kilos, 20,000 each.
And it became one of the largest drug rings in the Western United States.
I am the retired Hollywood madam. I always have girls with me. No one had as much fun as Denise and I.
I'm not gonna lie, it felt good to be a gangster. But people started disappearing. I saw a disaster waiting to happen.
She crossed state lines. It's a federal case.
I was facing 15 to 19 years in prison. I was screwed. My name is Denise Fleming. I became a drug dealer in the 80s. I served prison time in the 90s. And now I'm living amongst the powerful, rich, and famous in LA. They call me the Hollywood Queenpin. I was raised in a middle upper class neighborhood in Orange County. I had a great childhood. I lived close to the beach. I spent my time riding bicycles around and hanging out on the boardwalk. Me and my two other brothers were very close. They were my best friends. I would follow them anywhere. If they wanted to jump off the rooftop, I would follow them.
I'm the oldest, and my brother, Jeff, is the middle child, and Denise was the baby. She was kind of the princess. My dad just adored her. We all adored her.
My brother Jeff was somebody I looked up to. He had so much spunk and charisma. He was really hyper. Greg was a different personality. He was more like Leif Garrett, so to speak, like kind of surfer, laid back. My parents were just very, very loving. We had a good life. We had campers, we had dune buggies, we never had lack of, and there was also a lot of love.
Orange County definitely was like the American dream for us. I mean, it was the perfect place for a kid.
Everything was going good with our family. I had no idea there was a problem, but one day my mom got a phone call, and when she hung up, she was crying. Then later I found out that they were getting a divorce.
It was very traumatic on us, as any divorce is. I was 11 and my sister was 7.
It sucked. Just to have that tight-knit family being torn apart was really hard. It was devastating to my mom, only because my dad moved on with a younger woman and ended up marrying her.
After my father left, my mother was on survival mode and she ended up getting a job. So now my brother, myself, and my sister, we could do, in a sense, whatever we wanted. We weren't even pushing the boundaries. We had no boundaries.
In 1981, in 8th grade, I met Stacy. She was like an angel, and we were best friends, like right off the top.
These two girls were incredibly over the top. They would steal my mom's car. I would catch them in the park doing shots of tequila and smoking. Wherever there was a mischief, they were there. My sister and Stacy then started driving up to LA.
At this time, I've been to all the high school parties. I know everybody there is. I've dated all the cute ones there was to date. Like, I kind of outgrew it already at such a young age. So, yeah, you know, LA sounded kind of interesting to me. It was like an hour drive north from Orange County. So we got in the car and all dressed up. I remember I had some, you know, backless shirt on. I was really tan, high pumps, extra hairspray in, because it's the 80s and everything was extra. And I swear when we hit Sunset Boulevard, it was like, oh my God, it was like electric. And when we pulled up to the Rainbow Bar and Grill, there was like a line just snaked around the corner. I don't know how the hell we got in at such a young age. We went in there and it was just packed. It was like really cool bands, lead singers, guitar players, and Motley Crue with their hair and this spray, and dude, like they were on fire. Everyone was nuts. Like they had champagne glasses on the table just up and just pouring Dom. It was just the era of decadence and excess. I was like, this is it. This is where the party is at. I was definitely drinking Jack Daniels out of a bottle at an early age. And I spent my first time there just hanging out in a booth, hanging out with all the people from Motley Crue and all the actresses and models there trying to bang them.
When I first met Denise, her energy, her vibe, you felt like you'd known her your whole life. Denise and I instantly hit it off and became super close friends. It was always the big parties. Me and Denise would be together dancing and hanging out.
I find out that Denise is living this double life, so I decided I'm going up to LA a couple times with them. They didn't want me to go. And I remember being at the Rainbow, and I remember separating Billy Idol and Denise. Billy Idol was trying to pick up on Denise, and me and him almost got into a fist fight over this. And I'm like, no, this is not gonna happen.
My brother Greg would be like, who are you talking to? All the girls who came in my car, leave with me now. And we're like, oh my God, he's such a bummer. Like he was like having dad there.
While all this was starting to happen, all this craziness and the partying and going to LA, my mom was oblivious to everything we ever did. I mean, we could walk in drunk, high as a kite, and she would have no idea.
High school parties are one thing, but I've kind of went into the big leagues here. This is a whole different vibe, and I liked it. I kind of wanted more and more and more. At this time, my brother Jeff was 19 years old. Played the drums in a band. He was working at a sports pub in Huntington Beach. Jeff not only had money, but he kind of had a different attitude. He was acting different. He had a lot more swagger in him. He had a lot more girls around him. Always wearing a leather jacket. I mean, the cliche of cool. He drove a Porsche. And he would always have people at the house. Jimmy was one of the guys that would go to my mom's house a lot. My brother introduced me to him, and he was like, oh, that's your sister.
Jimmy was 19, and Denise was 17, and Jimmy thought Denise was beautiful. Denise wasn't interested in the beginning, but you know, Jimmy drove a Porsche. He had tons of money, and so my sister liked that.
Jimmy always had a crush on me. He treated me like a queen. Jimmy and I were becoming close, and then we just clicked from there. So during this time, my brother Jeff got a pager. He was always answering his pager. He always had money. He was always counting money. So I'd walk by, he'd be like, hey, Denise, come here. And I'd be like, ah, wow, ooh, cool, you know?
I noticed, wow, Jeff's driving a Porsche. Jeff's making money. Like, is his band doing well? Like, what's going on? I said, Jeff, what's up? What are you doing? Something's up. And that's when he said, listen, I have a way to make a lot of money. And I'm like, really? Like, I'm working 3 jobs in LA and I'm barely making my rent. I remember going into his room and I remember seeing a scale and seeing cocaine. And he was weighing out these little baggies. And what he made in one day, I made in 2 weeks.
Jeff and Jimmy were selling cocaine.
I was blown away. I mean, cocaine? I thought to myself, we would drink, we would smoke cigarettes, I would steal my mom's car. You know, we were wild, but cocaine, this was a whole nother level. So my brother, with his entrepreneurial spirit, decided, hey, I have my sister who's cute and Stacy who's cute, and they have a lot of friends. I can get more customers. So basically, my brother was having my sister do, you know, deliveries here and there, and Stacy doing little deliveries here and there, and they were getting paid.
It was like, oh, hey, here, and I'm giving it to a friend that I know. So I'd roll down the window, no big deal, and I would pass it off. It was like nothing. I never thought about I was actually doing a drug deal.
Now we have Denise, Jeff, and Stacy, and Jimmy all hanging out, and they're official drug dealers now.
Everyone in LA who met me was like, that's Heidi Fleiss's roommate. She introduced me to some really heavy hitters.
I'm Heidi Fleiss. You know, I always have girls with me, and they're hot girls. So yeah, of course Denise is gonna be with me.
I think with anything in life, when you're around something enough, you're gonna, you know, pick up those habits. So by hanging around my brother and Jimmy, drug dealing is just something that just really kind of came so natural to me. I really wasn't in tune of what I was actually even doing. Like for me, I could have been jarring tomato sauce. For me, that's what cocaine was. So I think that gave me a little edge where it made me fearless. My mom's doing her thing. She's working at the cafe. She's having a great time. My dad's doing his thing. So it's kind of me and Stacy and Jeff and Jimmy kind of against the world. Stacy and I were driving around and we're in just a bikini top, cut off shorts. We're listening to Madonna. I was having so much fun. I just felt like school just holding me back. So Stacy and I dropped out of school when we were 17 years old. Jeff and Jimmy, they were up in their game. They weren't selling ounces or pounds anymore. They were buying kilos, and they were really proud of it. During this time, Jimmy introduced me to everybody that he was working with, and they were pretty big hitters in the cocaine industry. I was very confident. I wasn't scared. I could definitely hold my own. He knew that about me. Jimmy always was really smart about drug dealing. However, he did go against his judgment and he ended up selling, I think it was 2 kilos, to somebody that was an undercover cop. He called me on the phone and he's like, come outside, come outside. So I ran outside and there was 2 black and white cop cars. Lights were flashing. He's on the ground and they cuffed him and we just locked eyes. And that's when I was like, oh, I love him. I started dating Jimmy right after he got out on bail. Even though he was looking at time and he was going to court, he still wasn't legit. And there was an order coming in, like he had to move like 10 kilos of cocaine, and I got really scared. I don't want you to get in trouble anymore, and oh my gosh, the time that you'd be looking at now would probably be doubled. I was like, I'll do it. I don't care. Like, it's just a drive, it's just coke. It's not a big deal. I'll just throw it in the car and I'll drive it from A to B. It was really important for me to show Jimmy that, oh, I wanted to help him. I wanted to get him through his hard times, and I was there, solid as a rock. At the time, my brother Greg was living in LA, and he was hustling, he was working hard. And he would come down to Orange County to visit us, and he was like, what's with all this money? It's like raining money with you guys.
I was conflicted. Like, I know this is wrong, but they're making all this money, and I'm tired of sweating, working 3 jobs. And so I started to drug deal like my sister and brother did.
At this time, kilos were coming in, and I had all the connections. I had credit with the Colombians, I had credit with the Mexicans, I had credit with the Peruvians. They would give me kilos, just hand them over to me, and they knew in like 4 days I'd come back with the money. There was a lot of money to be made, but there was a lot more money to be made if we took that product and we doubled it. So at this time, I would go into these hotels and use their kitchenettes.
I would walk into the hotel room and there would be 10 kilos, 20,000 each, $200,000. And they were gonna turn that into 400,000. So we would take 1 kilo and we would turn it into 2.
We would add some powder to it.
Inositol is a vitamin supplement and it's white. So it would work really good mixing up with the Coke.
When I got done packaging those kilos of cocaine, I was proud of my work, so I would put my initials on it, like all the other kingpins did.
I remember Denise and I went up to East LA to do our deliveries, and Denise is like, be cool, let me handle it, you follow my lead. We walked upstairs, the guy opened the door, we shook his hand, and Grandma was sitting on the bed, really sweet. And she looks at me and she lifts up the pillow and there's a sawed-off automatic shotgun. And she just puts it down and smiles at us, letting us know there's no screwing around in this place.
I wasn't afraid to use my voice in a man's world. I would go pick up cocaine from someone, and if I didn't like the product, I would tell them, I'm not getting that, you need to do better. And I'd leave, and they would turn around and they would call me back up and they say, okay, I got some better product for you. They knew Jimmy, they knew me, they knew how much we bought, so they weren't gonna mess with me. And that's when I really started running it. I got on a little power kick when I was moving tons, you know? I'm not gonna lie, it felt good to be a gangster.
Here's my sister, 5'3", small, and she's up in LA, and she's in a man's world, this cute little thing running shit. And she's the Hollywood Queenpin now.
When I first met this beautiful little darling, Denise, I thought she was one of the most charming, angel-faced sex pot I'd ever met. I absolutely loved her. Then I find out that this little angel, she's a drug kingpin. I'm blown away by it, and she was one big surprise after another.
With men, I feel that people become drug dealers because they want money and they get greedy. For me, it was, I wanted to be there, I wanted to see it through, and I was good at it. And you know, for someone who dropped out of school, it made me feel good. I was actually good at something. At the time, we were probably making about, you know, 350 grand every 4 or 5 days. Being a drug dealer, you're gonna have cops that follow you. They're gonna, you know, try to catch you. That's just the nature of the beast. The good guys, the bad guys. But I think once we were taking it out of state and international, the cops really started watching us.
We knew that what we were doing had consequences, but we just didn't care.
One time I went over to my brother's apartment. We were gonna go out, we're gonna go to Newport Beach and go to Deja Vu and go dancing. And I was just pounding on the door. He finally opened the door, and when I walked in, there was 3 guys with machine guns. One was behind my brother, 2 in the corners of the room. They threw me on the ground, guns were at my head, guns were at my brother's head, and they just kept saying, where's the money, where's the drugs? My brother's like, I don't have anything, I don't have anything. And I remember just looking at him like, oh my God, and I thought of my family. It was scary, I knew my heart was beating. I just didn't want him to die, you know? Guns were at my head, guns were at my brother's head, and they just kept saying, "You're gonna die." I really honestly thought my brother was gonna die. I thought, this is it. I never wanted to be in that position. I have a gun to my head to not know if somebody's gonna pull the trigger and if I was gonna die or if I was gonna witness my brother dying in front of me. And I remember just looking at him like, oh my God. Eventually, they put us in a walk-in closet and they just, told us to wait a certain amount of time. And by the time we got out, they were gone. The place was torn apart. And then my brother ran to his room and picks up a big wad of money and a big thing of Coke. It's like, they didn't find anything. And we were like, what? You almost killed us. You put us at risk. It was insane. At this time, I'm still a teenager. I'm 18 years old. But I ended up moving in with Jimmy, who bought a house, cash, on a lake. At this point, my brother Jeff was out of the game, and I have everything I need. I have tons of cars to pick from. We had speedboats, jet skis. We had friends over every weekend. It was like we were retired, One day, we're at the house on the lake, and my brother Jeff and I go to the liquor store. I hop back in my Mercedes, put it in reverse, turn my shoulder, and I'm like, what the hell? There's a whole bunch of men coming. They put their gun to my head and to my brothers, and they threw us on the ground. They took my brother in one car, they put me in another, and I was like, oh my God, I'm getting kidnapped. I'm gonna get killed. And the next thing I know, a helicopter lands and there was a police decal on it. And so I figured out it was a raid. And we drove up to my house and then they raided it with guns. I was scared they were going to shoot Jimmy. They ripped the house apart and they didn't even find anything. Yeah, not a fun time. So it was time that Jimmy had to pay his consequences, and he finally went in to do his time from that drug deal. I'm going to visit him every Sunday, and I'm doing it, and I miss him. And that was starting to wear on me. I was starting to look at my life like, I don't want to be one of those girls later on. If he's always going to sell drugs, the last thing I want to do is be a mom carrying a baby, waiting in a jail line like that. That's not my future. So I moved back down to Orange County. Jimmy and I eventually broke up. I obtained my cosmetology license and I started working in a salon. I wasn't selling drugs. I was out of it. I was done. One day, I was working at the hair salon and a handsome guy walked in, Lance. He had really dark hair, Spanish, and we kind of made a connection. I couldn't help it. He was super hot and I ended up going out with him for drinks later on. But I found out that he was a drug dealer and I was so mad because it was like my type. Like, of course he was. So I dumped him. I was done with him. I wanted to not live that lifestyle. It's 1991. I was still doing hair at the time. Stacy and I decided to go out, have the time of our lives like we normally did. And the next morning, we woke up with a hangover, but I had to go to the salon. I was trying to, live that legit life and get that small paycheck. But Stacy couldn't find her keys, and I was like, I'm sorry, they're here somewhere. You'll find them, I have to go. We got into a pretty good fight. She was really mad at me, and I was pissed off at her because she knew how important this job was to me. And that's the last time I talked to her. A little short time after that, she ended up driving to Palm Springs, and she got into a car accident. And she passed away. I was devastated. She was like part of me, but it really did wake me up and appreciate life a lot more. And the one thing I wasn't gonna do is get involved in drugs at all. Stacy inspired me. You know, after losing somebody, it's like you want to get on with your life and not waste a day. And the only thing that I can think about is just moving forward. I started my own clothing company. I was a sales rep. I was doing a whole bunch of stuff that I wanted to do. I was following my dreams. I ended up meeting another guy. He was not involved in drugs, but my boyfriend ended up cheating on me, like a lot. And then I ended up, you know, his best friend just to piss him off. So we went on and off like psycho, and that ended. But even though I was heartbroken, I'm not gonna let a man break me, so I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna look pretty, and I'm gonna find me a hot guy. I went out and wow, was I surprised Lance was there, and he was the perfect person in my eyes to be like, he was selling drugs, but you know what, the legit guy didn't work out either. So I didn't care that he was selling drugs. Along with Lance came a whole new crew that I met. They kept me preoccupied, where I didn't feel lonely, where I didn't feel in pain from losing Stacy. So I went out a lot. I was like, you know, club rats. And I overheard them talking, and they were trying to get meth. And they were going on and on about their prices, and I was just like, oh, you want that? I could probably get that for you. I know people. I just kind of offered to help, like I was giving them a name to a good plumber or something. I ended up hooking up my Mexican connection, who ended up supplying this group of people, and it became one of the largest drug rings in the Western United States.
When Denise got arrested, I was devastated. You usually go to rehab or you're on probation, but here's my sister facing 15 to 19 years.
When I got my bedroll and finally hit my bunk after entering the facility, I was right across from Heidi Fleiss. We ended up thrashing the prison, to be quite honest.
Some people call it vandalism. I call it remodeling.
At this time, I'm still on the straight and narrow. I'm at the salon. I'm not in the drug game. I just was helping someone out. They wanted, you know, something at a different price, and I knew how to get better product.
My sister was in love with Lance, and she did not want to get involved in drugs, but she wanted to help Lance out.
What I thought was a simple introduction ended up to be a lot more than that. The Mexican contact, he didn't want to work with these people. He was like, I'll only work with you. And I was like, I don't want to be involved. He's like, oh, we'll just do it like old times. You know, I'll put it here and then you have these people pick it up. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm not touching it. I'm not involved, I'm not selling drugs. Apparently, you know, I am. Back in the 80s, me and Jimmy had a whole different thing. We were solid, we were loyal. This was a whole new game to these people. They were getting addicted to the money, the power, the drugs, but they were kind of turning on each other. They were getting sloppy. People started disappearing. I just saw kind of a disaster happening. I wanted no part of it. I went to my Mexican contact and I told him, I don't feel good about this crew. But if you want to work directly with them, you go ahead. I don't want any part of it. And he said, okay. They were making a lot of money for him. He wanted in. That's when I was out. I'm working in the salon. I'm doing my thing. I'm legit. And I'm still seeing Lance, you know, when he's down, when he's around. I'm also dating some other people. But he asked me to go to Hawaii with one of the guys who was bringing some drugs there. They wanted me to go with him because it looks odd for a single white man just to fly to Hawaii alone. They want to know, like, what is he doing? So if he goes with a girl, he's going with his girlfriend, it makes more sense. So it's not to raise eyebrows. I love Hawaii, like I love a trip. So I ended up going. The guy carried the drugs. I had nothing to do with it. And I went for a couple days and came back. Later on, I get a phone call from Lance and he tells me to go to Hawaii with this guy again. And I said, no, I'm not doing it. And I hung up. I got another phone call and another phone call. Finally, I was like, listen, I don't want to be involved in drugs. I don't want to sit next to him on the plane, and I will not be around him when any drugs pass off in Maui. I want no part of it. And he agreed. He said, okay, go. I can't wait to see you. I'll meet you there. And, you know, it was more like, oh, we'll get a massage. And he kind of, you know, coerced me into it, I feel. And so I said yes.
She's not involved in the drugs. She doesn't want really any part of the drugs, but she's in the middle. And so she's conflicted.
I'm on the flight to Hawaii. I'm not even sitting next to the guy. I'm like rows back. The plane lands. I'm like, I need an umbrella drink now, pronto. I get up, I carry my big Louis Vuitton duffel bag, my bougie bag, and the guy who I flew with, he's getting his luggage and he sees me and he's like, oh, I'll carry it for you. And me, you know, ding dong, was like, okay, carry my bag for me. And then I got shooed off the plane. When I exited the plane, I waited for him and he got off and we walked out of the airport. As soon as we walk out of the airport, we're met with the DEA. They asked, can we check your bags? And I said, no. And they asked him, he said no. And they said, okay, we're gonna have to detain you. So they walked us and they put us into 2 separate rooms. And they asked me again, can I check your bags? And I said, no way. And they came back and they said, well, he's talking in the next room. And I was thinking to myself, yeah, right, that's like what they say to everybody. Of course he's not talking. They said, if there's nothing in your bag right now, just sign the search warrant and you can go home. At this point, I'm like, I don't give a shit what happens to this guy. I'm signing the search warrant because I know there's nothing in my bag and I'm out of here. Good luck. I signed the search warrant. They unzip my luggage. They pull out his jacket. And my heart dropped. When I was getting off the plane carrying my Louis Vuitton duffel bag, he said, hey, I'll carry it because it's heavy. And I was like, okay, and I walked off the plane. What he did was he put that Louis Vuitton bag on the chair, he unzipped it, he put his jacket in that bag that had 2.5 pounds of crystal methamphetamine in it and zipped it back up. I was sitting there and it was like a joke. Out of all the crimes I've done in the past, I never got in trouble for, but here I am, and this is not even my drugs. This is a joke. Like, clearly this is gonna be fixed. There's no way I'm gonna go down for this. I mean, I almost like started giggling. I was so nervous. I'm like, that's not my jacket. And they're like, whose jacket was it? I was like, I don't know. I don't know whose jacket it is. Is it the guy that you traveled with? Is it this guy? And I said, no. Meanwhile, he's in the next room saying that I knew that it was in there, which I didn't. So they ended up giving me some beautiful mug shots that night. I did not get my umbrella drink, and they threw me in a cell. The next day, I was transferred. I was mortified when I entered Oahu Community Correctional Center. I was like, oh my God. I mean, it had razor wires and gun towers. I was in shock. Like, I couldn't call anybody. I didn't know how to get a hold of my family. And I just remember that I sat there fetal position and I cried in my cell for maybe 3 days straight. I was so scared. They brought me to court and court gave me no bail. That's when it really hit me. I didn't even have a bail. Like, what is happening to me?
When I found out my sister got arrested, I was devastated. It was a complete shock to all of us.
And the next thing I know, I was at court again, and I was at the window, and I was just devastated. I was just like, my head was down, and I hear this knock, this banging on the window, and I looked up and I saw my dad. It's like, you know, it was like Liam Neeson just came in to get his baby girl. And he says, we're gonna take care of it, baby. And I just broke down in tears.
My father was in Las Vegas at the time. He totally uprooted his life and he rented a condo in Hawaii.
I ended up fighting for bail, and my family really stepped up. My dad came and rescued me and was there physically with me. My mom financially put up her house. So I was let out on bail. I was on house arrest, and I had a monitor ankle bracelet. We got a lawyer, and that's when I found out the severity of my case. I was facing 15 to 19 years in prison. I was screwed.
When you get busted on your first arrest, you usually go to rehab or you're on probation. But here's my sister facing 15 to 19 years. This is a complete mess that she's in because it's a federal case. She crossed state lines.
Here I am in Makaha. I'm living with my dad and stepmom. One day before my trial, we're watching movies and we're having a really good time, and the marshals ended up knocking at our door. They ended up taking me in again on another charge, conspiracy of being involved in criminal organizational crime out of California. On the way there, one of the agents turned around and she told me that Lance is dead. Lance was murdered. He was shot execution style, and he was found in a dumpster. Turns out that Lance had a prior arrest up in Marin County. Him and his roommate got in trouble, and he was working with the feds as an informant. At first, I thought it was Lance who completely set me up and told the federal marshals that I was flying in with his friend with drugs. But what happened is his roommate's girlfriend ended up telling on me and the guy who flew to Hawaii. And she was just trying to cut time down for her boyfriend. The marshals were taking me in because they wanted me to turn on everybody and talk. I refused to talk. I wasn't gonna get myself in a situation where I'd have to watch my back the rest of my life. The day of my trial, the courtroom was packed, and I'm looking at the jurors and I'm thinking about all the evidence that they have against me. And from there on, I was like, there's no way I'm gonna win it. And so I decided to plead guilty. And I eventually ended up getting 5 years in prison. The Board of Prisons had me going to the FCI, which is the Federal Correctional Institute for Women. When I got my bedroll and I finally hit my bunk after entering the facility, I was right across from Heidi Fleiss.
I am the retired Hollywood madam. I was arrested 1,000,000 years ago. I was Grindr, I was Tinder, I was Match.com, I was all of it myself.
Heidi and I ended up getting along like automatically. We actually knew some of the same people. Even though I was from Orange County, I did my time in LA partying. We were just like besties there.
When I was a madam, I have to send girls to Argentina for polo pony season. I'm getting $10,000 a night. I don't need the girls getting drunk and giving free blowjobs. I want my money. So I know how to read people. And right away, I got a good feeling from Denise. No one had as much fun as Denise and I. Orange is the New Black. When I first saw it, I was like, wait, did they have cameras on us? How did they know?
Heidi and I were bored. We would just do things just to get a rise out of people.
At night, we were at the barracks. It was really hot there. And she's standing in front of this big fan.
It was so hot. And so I'd go, Heidi, check this out. And I'd go in front of it and I'd bend down and I'd just do a whole thing. And she would die laughing because she was like, do you see all those chicks staring at you?
And it was like from Penthouse Letters or something. The way she was doing it was kind of funny.
We ended up kind of thrashing the prison, to be quite honest. We just started like throwing this off and breaking that sign. They had town hall meetings and they were like, who's ever doing this? Step forth. And we would giggle and laugh.
Some people call it vandalism. I call it remodeling.
We were so silly together, but we just had fun. It's not easy doing time. It's not easy to be away from your family, you know, and to think about what your life could have been. But finally, my time was up. I walked out of those prison doors and I was so happy. I actually screamed. I was free. I was finally out of the prison system. I couldn't believe it. I entered when I was 27 years old and I was released when I was 33. I'm back in Orange County trying to figure out what to do with my life.
When I got out of prison, I was scared. I had to try and figure out some way of making it, and I know Denise did too. We just started hanging out and readjusting together, which made it easy.
Everyone in LA who met me was like, that's Heidi Fleiss's roommate. That's what I was just known for. I was introduced like that. It was kind of funny.
I'm Heidi Fleiss. You know, I always have girls with me, and they're hot girls. So yeah, of course Denise is going to be with me. And a trail of other hot girls, it's just the way it goes, you know?
She introduced me to some really heavy hitters, some showrunners, and she got me a job. So I'm working the production grind, getting different jobs, and I did the grind for a while, but part of me is like, this is not it. This is not making me happy. And I wanted to follow my passion. So one day, Heidi and I were talking, and I was expressing to her how I really wanted to go into prisons and talk to girls about not making the same mistakes that I did.
A letter was received at the Division of Juvenile Justice from Denise Fleming, wanting to figure out how she could give back and connect to a local nonprofit. And I was introduced to this letter and set up an appointment to meet Denise. We came up with some ideas that it would be amazing if she could come inside the youth correctional facilities to share her own personal testimony, her own personal story.
I wanted to talk to these children about truly loving themselves. I think that if you have a good self-esteem, that you wouldn't get into the same situation as I did.
A lot of people can talk the talk. Not everybody can walk the walk. She can truly say that she has given back and tried to right the wrongs that she had done to society.
Denise, my brother and I came out of drugs and changed our life. My brother's a doctor. My sister and I own a supplement company.
The way Denise turned her life around after prison is impressive. She is an amazing person.
I could call Denise anywhere, anytime, and always count on her. And it feels good to have someone like that in your life.
Denise has come a long way. I'm very proud of her. She has a beautiful life, beautiful husband, 2 great kids. It looks like it's the perfect Hollywood ending, but for her, it's just the beginning.
I just wrote a book, and I think I wanted to write my book, first off, because I do have some crazy stories, but I wanted my book to help others. You can be so low in your life and never think it's gonna get better, but if you truly want it better, you can make it better.
So 201, take 2.
Those mugshots are so bad. My mugshots do not look like Lindsay Lohan. I went with more of a Nick Nolte vibe. They're so bad, they're awesome.